guys, I'm Jenny and this is the Big Sew Along, and today we are going to be talking about hems. Specifically, we're going to be talking about hand hems and why you would want to do them. We're going to be using as an example this coat. This is a Vogue pattern, a vintage Vogue pattern. It's a Donna Karan 1958. I don't know when this is from. Looks like 80s to me. 1987, 1958. Anyways, it's a really beautiful bias cut coat. The line drawing looks like this right here. This is the back. This is the front. This is meant to be an unlined coat. I made this last fall out of this beautiful wool and metallic sort of like tweedy fabric that a friend bought for me at Mood. I love this fabric, it's gorgeous. I, however, decided to line mine in an equally beautiful silk twill. Same friend bought that back for me from Mood in New York last fall. So this coat has been sitting here since probably November. Partly because it is cut on the bias and I really wanted the drape to hang out so I could have a nice even hem everywhere, but also because I decided to line it, and it turns out that lining a bias coat that is not meant to be lined is a giant pain. So it had to be done a couple of times over. I work for an incredible dressmaker here in the Detroit area, and she helped me, and over time we figured it out, but by the time I got it all put together, I was kind of sick of it, and I really didn't want to deal with it at all. So today, now that it's July in Michigan and it's about 800 degrees, I decided to work on my coat, which makes zero sense. I get it. Anyway, before we get that far, there are a couple of ways, obviously, to hem things. The way that I most often use, and the way that most commercial patterns are written, is really for what's called a stitched hem, which is exactly like this that we did on our Katya skirt last week, where you just stitch it down with your sewing machine. That's the back side, that's the front side, not always in a contrast color. A lot of times it's preferable to have a stitched hem like that. For example, in jeans, you want that detail of the thread, the hem, to show. A lot of other times it's also preferable, not just because it's easier and faster, but because it can be a design detail as well. You could also do a blind hem stitch on your sewing machine. That is not my favorite. I don't feel like it comes out very blind, first of all, and yeah, that's my only thing. If I was going to do a blind hem, I would personally just prefer to do it by hand, which is what we're going to do here in just a minute. You can, however, do a blind blind hem stitch, and that would look like this in the finished garment. I don't know if you can see that because these pants are wrinkly. If you look really closely, you can see a couple of dots there. You can see in the light there, I think, from the hem. This is what this one looks like on the back. This is a pair of commercially made pants. This is a serged hem, and then they've folded it up and done a blind hem by hand, which looks like that on the inside. That is essentially what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how I'm going to hem the sleeves of this coat, and then I'm going to show you how I hem the lining of this coat. Most often you would want to do this hem in, if you're using a fabric like this, which is a super nice fabric, where you don't want a strong line of stitching to show all around the end. A dressier garment, most likely something really tailored, like a pair of trousers, obviously in a jacket, or like today in outerwear. For the most part, you don't want a machine stitched hem in those, mostly because it just doesn't look very nice. There are probably other reasons in terms of the way it affects the fabric's hang, etc., but for the most part, it really just doesn't look nice to have a thicker fabric. That line of stitching is going to be more delineated, so it's going to stand out even more because it compresses the fabric more there. It creates a bit of a shadow. Anyways, those are the reasons you might not want to use a machine stitched hem, and a couple of the reasons that you might want to use a machine stitched hem. So now let's get to it. I'm going to take you over to the ironing board here. I'm going to put my sleeves on a sleeve board, and hopefully that'll be clear enough for you guys to see what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, so I have one length of thread here, which is roughly the length of my arm, so maybe a couple feet. I have one knot in one end. It is not doubled over. It's just one single layer of thread. Then this is my sleeve. You can see, actually I think I'm gonna have to turn this around, but this is, my hem is pressed up and in placing here. This is already pressed in place, and I have placed pins all the way around the hem, about 1/4 of an inch away from the raw edge. I'm going to turn this around this way, and I prefer to start at the underarm if I can figure out where it is. Here. Now what we're going to do is, even though I have a knot in this, it's not going to be terribly secure, especially in a fabric like this. It's a really loose weave, so I am going to, maybe I don't need this. I am going to, right here in this seam allowance, I'm going to fold back my hem allowance on the bottom there. I'm just going to make a couple of stitches over in that exact spot. Now I'm not going all the way to the front. That's a pin, that's not my needle. Here, I'll take this out so you can see. So I'm not going through to the front, just going through this seam allowance. Now, that is the key the whole way around. You do not want to go all the way through to the front of the fabric. It's not as big a deal right here on the seam line because you have an extra layer of fabric there, but the rest of the way around it's going to be pretty important. Okay, so now I've gone through that a couple of times. My thread is nice and secure. I'm just going to grab a piece of, I have this folded back over my pin. I'm just going to grab a couple of threads there and pull my thread through. And now on the coat part, you can see that's my interfacing there. I'm going to try just to grab that interfacing. If you have something like maybe a skirt or something that does not, or trousers that doesn't have interfacing there, what you want to do is just grab a thread. I don't know if you can see that. I literally have one thread of that interfacing. It can be 2 threads. You just want it to be as small as possible. So there we go. All right, now I'm going to go back to this side. I'm just going to grab a little piece here. It does not, you can grab a bigger piece on this side. That's the underside. It's going to be on the inside, so you won't be able to see it. This side is the back of this. So if you go all the way through, you're going to see it. Okay, now back to this side, just another thread. Back to this side, another thread on this one. And we're going to do that all the way around. Now you don't want to pull your thread too tight. You don't want it obviously to be loose because you don't want anything to get caught in it. But you don't want it to be too tight, because if it's too tight, you're going to get marks on the, it's going to show up on the right side. I have to get rid of that pin there. All right. That's my interfacing side. Now my coat side. And of course my thread's going to knot up like crazy, which is a reason that you do not want to use a huge piece of thread. It's too easy for it to get tangled. So just take your time, go all the way around, just exactly like this. Check and make sure every now and again that you're not going through to the front. You literally just fold your fabric right over that pin that you have in there, and that gives you the line on which to sew. All right, so I'm going to finish up this sleeve, and then I will be back to show you the lining. Okay, so that's the hem on our actual coat done. You can see how you really can't see any just stitching. Obviously, it's going to be harder to see in this anyways because this fabric has a ton of texture. But this is the inside. Looks like that. And I try to keep my, ooh, I have a really big stitch there. I really try to keep my stitches about a 1/2 inch apart. Looks like I'm a little bit further than that on these, maybe 3/4, which is honestly a little too far apart. I usually use my thumbnail and try to go halfway through my thumbnail for each one. I guess I was rushing. Anyway, okay, so that's the outer part. Now we're going to do our lining, and I have this, you can see here, I have pins all the way around the hem of my lining. These pins match up exactly to the length of my sleeve. So if I had this right side around, the coat sleeve would hang to right here. Now, to cut this excess off, I want to give myself 5/8 of an inch more than the hem of the coat. So from my pins, I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch, or you can eyeball it if you're good at that. I am not. And I'm going to do that all the way around. All right, now I can get rid of these pins. I'm just going to cut off this excess. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of this sleeve board. Rid of this, whatever that is, and we are going to, here we go, lost my sleeve. Okay, so now we're going to pull the sleeve through, so, and you just want to make sure that your lining isn't twisted. So I can see here, that's the seam that goes right there. Now, I'm going to fold this up about 1/4 of an inch, just eyeball it. I'm going to try to match that, the cut edge of my lining with the cut edge of my coat, right about there, okay? And then I'm just going to pin that right close to that fold, just like that. And I'm going to use more pins in this rather than less, because I use them as a guide for my stitching when we come to doing that. Okay, I have it pinned all the way around. And now we're just going to go back to our needle and thread. Same thing, you only want one strand of thread. You don't want it to be doubled. Tie a little knot, but that is not going to secure it in this, so just be aware of that. Now, the way I do it is, again, I start at the underarm seam, and Oh my God, I just unthreaded my needle. I'm gonna start right here at the underarm seam just like before. I'm gonna take a double stitch right here. I can see right there, that's where my knot is, just so I know where to stop. Take a double stitch there so you don't pull that out. Okay, I can actually clip this little tail off right now so I don't forget. Okay, now on this, we're not folding anything back. This thread is attached to my coat right here in the seam line. Now I'm going to go into this fold of the lining, just take a small stitch just like that, and then inevitably it gets caught on the pin. Okay, like that, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to take a stitch out of the hem, and then right back here into the fold of the lining. Keep your stitches small, and you can see I came out of my lining right here, so that's where I'm going to go in to my coat. I came out of my coat right here, so that's where I'm going to go into my lining. It's not hard to do. It does take a little bit of patience. All right, I'm going to do that all the way around this sleeve, around the other sleeve, and then around the hem. I have already, I think, I've already hemmed the bottom of the coat. I just need to, oh, I did have to do some work over here. So I'm going to have to fix this corner and then reattach my lining to the bottom. And then I'll show you guys how it looks. Okay guys, I hope that you could see what was going on in that video. I know on that coat, because of the texture, it might be a little harder to see. I'll try to blow it up so you can see it close up. If you guys like information like this, like basic sewing information to sort of like take your skills up a little bit, I have a couple of book recommendations. These are all 3 vintage books, although one of them is Vogue Sewing, and I paid $3.50 for this at a yard sale or something. This one is, I think this one is from the 80s. 1982. What I was going to say is there may be a newer edition of this one, but this one you can usually get pretty cheaply at like a yard sale or online, usually like Amazon or someplace like that. You'll be able to find Better World books is where I get a lot of my used books. Anyways, this is a really good one, and they cover literally everything in here, from hemming like we just did to making buttonholes and bound buttonholes and pockets and flies and all of everything. The other one is the Bishop method of clothing construction, and this was from the 60s. I want to say, oh, even better, 1959. This one has a lot of really great like techniques in it. She uses black and white photography. It also has like some really cool illustrations in it. I know that's probably not why you buy a sewing book. I just happen to have a lot of vintage sewing books, and I buy them always because I get excited when I see, you know, cool illustrations and stuff. And now of course I can't find one now. I was looking for one of the really cute little pictures in here. Anyways, very vintage. This is the Bishop method of clothing construction, and the author's name is Edna Bright Bishop. I'll see if I can find a link to this someplace and put that down below. The book I use most often when I need help is this one, which is the Reader's Digest Complete Guide to Sewing. This one again is from like the early 80s. This one says 1989 actually. But this is exactly the same book I had in my high school sewing class in like 1978 or 79. This is probably a more updated edition, but it does have tons of information, and I feel like these directions are all, they all have like little charts like this, a flow chart kind of thing where you can see images or drawings, not photographs, of what's going on. And this book has served me really well over the years. I've used it for many, many things, and whenever I need a reference to a technique or something that I don't know, I always go back to this one. I have many different vintage books, but these are the three that I most often use. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys is, a couple of weeks ago, I discovered this company, sewgirl.co.uk. So I ordered a couple of patterns from them. I ordered this one, which is the Cecily dress. And I ordered this one, which is the Elsie trousers. I think this designer has actually been around for a while, but I literally just found her the other day, and I can't remember how. But I loved all of her designs, and I went to her website. She also has some kits and stuff that I thought were really cool. Some with like indigo fabrics, and she has like a really cute bag that you can buy as a kit with like the leather pieces and the metal pieces and some British wool to make a really cool like saddlebag kind of thing. Anyways, if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link so you can check out her stuff. She has an Etsy shop to purchase the patterns, but she does have a website with a lot of other stuff on it, so I'll just link you to her website so you can get to her Etsy shop and everything from there. And I think that is it for today, guys. So I hope you all have a really good weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday.